Hey everyone, welcome to another Marvel Monday where Bekah and I will discuss this latest episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Of course, we're going to have some more Marvel merchandise to start off with. So let's jump right into that first. Some new Marvel must-haves to go along with this second episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes, indeed. And I'm starting with the new John Walker merchandise, which not not a big fan of his, as I'm sure we will get to. But yes, there's several new items with him, including this thermos, which is the new Captain America logo. I'm
Yeah, that's the good
excited.
thing about the John Walker merch is they mostly focus on just being Captain America. So, fans
Right.
like that at least.
So yeah, we have plenty of new shirts with with him if that's what you feel like adding to your collection. Oh, sorry, this is taking a few minutes or a few seconds to load. But yeah,
It's
there's
a lot of merch.
several designs with him. And then of course there's a new junk headband. There's the other side of it. So if you're really into the logo. And then you know a little bit about this. We wrote about this earlier today, the new figure from Hasbro. Did you have any comments on this?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool new figure, a new Marvel Legends series figure with a couple of accessories. You can see the alternate head there, so you can have him either with the cap helmet or without. And of course, you're not going to get a Captain America figure without the iconic shield. So,
Right.
two pretty necessary accessories to add to this figure. But yeah, no, I really like the look of it. The posability, obviously, you can see here is pretty cool. So, yeah, nice addition to your Marvel action figure collection. I want to see a whole line from this series because I think this look for Falcon and for Bucky and some of the other characters that we're going to meet and that we'll talk about today too. I think that could be really cool.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, there we are. One more of him. So yeah, it's a pretty good replica of who he or what he looks like. Oh yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. We've also got some other Falcon and Winter Soldier pre-orders, and I just thought this looks pretty cool.
Yeah, these are really great. These look, I mean, so realistic, especially the Bucky one. I thought, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second here. But I mean, the wings on Falcon look
Yeah.
great. It's so cool. The details of these figures are just awesome.
And then this one, there's actually two for Bucky, but this is these are both of those two are available at Entertainment Earth, and you can see he's got the metal arm and then the cool little stand. But this one is the one I'm really excited about, and
Yeah.
it's like $250, so rightfully so. But my goodness, it looks so much like Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, I mean the detail on that is just amazing. It looks like you can see the texture of his jacket. It looks
Yes,
awesome.
yes. So I won't bore everybody with every photo, but yeah, there's a lot that they're doing with this character. We do have some more. Oh, I thought this was an interesting shirt that they have with Falcon, Winter Soldier, and then Sharon Carter and Baron Zemo. And we haven't really seen either of them. We got a little bit of Baron Zemo at the end today, or of Zemo, I should say. Maybe Baron is when he's wearing the mask. I don't know. But yeah, there's some new stuff there. And then also I thought this hoodie was cool as well. So if you like Winter Soldier, or you can get the same thing, but it says Winter Soldier. So
Yeah, we tend to pick out a lot of the same pieces of merch because I also really like that hoodie.
oh, and I'm gonna jump back to John Walker for just a second. There's also a Funko Pop, so gotta have those.
Right, of course.
And then yeah, just more T-shirts if they'll load. Yeah, there we go. So lots of cool stuff. A little more emphasis on, of course, John Walker this week, and then also on Winter Soldier. Last week, I think, was a little more Falcon heavy. So they're doing a decent job toggling between the two. But yeah, that's about it for us for Marvel must haves.
Cool. Yeah, some really awesome new stuff, and like you said, I mean, there's so many characters that have already shown up in this series, and then still so many more to come. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of different characters featured in the merchandise in the future. But let's get into this week's episode because I'm sure we have a lot to talk about here. So, last week we wrapped up meeting John Walker, the new Captain America, if you're willing to call him that. And I think a lot of people, he quickly became a meme. A lot of people were not fans on the internet. So there was a lot of hate for this character. And I think this episode did such a good job. And you actually mentioned this to me before. They do such a great job of, taking somebody that people hate and like humanizing him and making him relatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I was telling Kyle, I feel like Shirley in Community when they're at the carnival and they meet Blade and he says something about, well, it won't change the way mustard tastes. And she's like, oh, I get it. I see the appeal. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I see the appeal of this guy. There's, he seems like he's smart. He seems very like charismatic and he seems to understand the weight of the title of, Captain America. So it doesn't seem like it's something that was just handed to him. Like he's just taking lightly like, hey, cool, I'm the new Captain America.
Yeah, no, totally agree. He's a very relatable character in this opening scene. Real quick, I just want to take a second. Hi. Hello. Yeah, I think they did, like I said, a really good job of flipping you back to at least understanding where he's coming from. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like he's just a guy that was given a great opportunity. You're not going to say no to an opportunity like, hey, will you be the new Captain America? Of course you're going to say yes to that. So he hasn't really done anything wrong that we've seen. I have a lot of thoughts on John Walker. We're going to get to later on, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I mean, we learn more and more about him as this episode goes on, but I have some further thoughts for down the line that we'll get to. But we see him here, being human and talking about how much pressure is on him and everything. He's talking to what in the moment appears to be either his wife or girlfriend. In the credits, her name is Olivia Walker, so I would assume his wife. So, and then we also meet his friend, who we'll find out is Lamar Hoskins, and we'll talk about him more a little bit later as well. But they're just kind of pumping him up, trying to get him ready for this media event that we don't really know anything about until we do. We find out he is on Good Morning America.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny, his whole Good Morning America. Like, okay, I thought he was just practicing how he was going to say hi to everybody. No, he's actually on GMA.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that kind of took me out of it. I know that it's very normal for these shows to have, other media outlets featured, and you have, like, Vanity Fair reporting or whatever, or of course they're going to show footage of something. But the fact that it was like a GMA exclusive on Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a bit much for me.
Yeah, we have someone who, Jeffrey agrees with you here. Instead of just your typical, they could have had this, connect really well with like Spider-Man and had it be the same station that J. Jonah Jameson was reporting from. But I don't know, it didn't bother me. I just kind of laughed it off. I was like, oh, it's funny. He's on Good Morning America, and then just move on with it. But no, it was funny. It was interesting in the moment for sure. They go over his resume and some of his accomplishments, and we see sort of like a highlight reel of all the things he could do. And watching that, I was just like, he's really good with the shield, like, and appears to be more than just a really great athlete and soldier. So there was something a little bit off right there. And as she's reading off his resume, and she says, you tested off the charts in speed, endurance, intelligence, and he cuts her off there. And I think after going back and watching it a couple times, I found that more and more interesting. And we'll get to why again later on. But Yeah, I wanted to point that out because I think we're building to something here with John Walker. There's more to him than meets the eye.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe too.
And of course, if the new Captain America is on Good Morning America, people are going to be watching, and that includes Bucky, who we are now seeing for the first time, getting this news, and he obviously isn't happy about it, much like Sam. So it doesn't take long. We talked all last week about how, that whole first episode was great, but we never got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier together. And so a few minutes into this episode, we got them on screen together, which was, it was nice. It felt like, it was satisfying, one, to see them together, and it felt like they caught up quickly, like we felt behind on the pace of where this show should be. And then the fact that they got on screen here so quickly, felt like we caught up and were able to move forward.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think I was hoping for a little more like leading up to the two of them reconnecting, but it's also kind of like, you have there's some friendships that you have where you see people after a long time, and there's no reintroduction or anything. You're just like, what's happening right now? And so I guess that makes sense for them as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that. This isn't Steve and Tony catching up. It's not like these guys are long friends. They actually have mostly hated each other throughout the MCU, and their relationship has been really funny. So I thought it was great that the way that they jumped right back into that dynamic. My issue with this was, and if you were paying attention as closely as we were, and watching every little piece that Marvel was releasing, we saw this whole scene and the next one in clips that they've released, and then in the trailers you could piece it all together as well. So there was a good 6-minute stretch here of I've seen all of this before. So that was unfortunate, but at the same time I was also like, all right, well, this is all the clips that we've seen to this point, so everything will be new from this point on. So that was good. We then, like I said, the next scene was them on the plane, which we saw before. I like the whole dynamic with it. They're on, trying to figure out, Bucky's trying to figure out what the plan is, and Sam is just ignoring him. And Sam jumps out with his wings, flies off, no problem. Bucky asks for a chute, and Torres tells him they're at 200 feet. They're way too low to use a parachute. So Bucky goes ahead and just goes for it. Much like Captain America in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, when he jumps out and Rumlow, somebody asked, was he wearing a chute, and Rumlow says no, he wasn't. Doesn't quite work so well for Bucky.
Yes, I know, that was funny.
Yeah, they. From the moment these two get together on screen, there's a good 15-minute stretch of just comedy. I mean, there's some serious aspects to it too, but everything they do is just funny.
Yeah, even when then the next thing is Red Wings hovering over him, and he's like, I got all of that on, I filmed all of that.
Yeah.
He's
he keeps saying, get that out of my face, and he's trying to swipe it down out of the air, and yeah, everything they do is just funny. And then speaking of, as Bucky is trying to sneak up, they're going after the Flag Smashers, by the way, and Bucky's trying to sneak up on them, and Sam makes a comment, look at you, sometime in Wakanda, and you're like the White Panther, and he says White Wolf, actually, and that completely throws Sam off. Yeah. That was a really funny scene as well.
Yes. Is there more to the whole White Wolf name or any of that?
Nothing I'm aware of, unless there's maybe a comic, a stretch in the comics that I haven't read. But no, yeah, there's not much more to it. I do like that they gave him that nickname and kind of worked him into the Black Panther lore. But no, not too much more on that. Okay. So Bucky and Sam then get into their first encounter with the Flag Smashers, which we'll talk a little bit more as we go on. But I keep wanting to call them Enfys Nest. I don't know if you saw Solo, a Star Wars story, but the leader of the Flag Smashers also plays the leader of Enfys Nest, and I keep confusing the two, and that's the name I keep coming back to. So if you hear me say Enfys Nest in the future, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Flag Smashers.
Oh yeah. No, I know. And then I was thinking of the other she and Donald Glover and Paul Bettany have all been in Star Wars, Star Wars properties, and then in the actually all three of them were in Solo, and then
Yeah.
now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. So we see this is the leader here, the leader of Enfys Nest. So they mistake her for a hostage, and this is again we saw a lot of this in the trailers and different clips and stuff like that. But she gets the drop on Bucky, and then the whole fight kicks off here. Doesn't take long for her to snap Red Wing in half.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
I felt bad for Sam. I felt bad for Red Wing. I mean, we haven't. I know that was it in Civil War when Red Wing comes to the rescue at some point, and Sam tells
Black
Black
Widow.
Widow to say thank you or something. She's like, I'm
Yeah.
not talking to that thing. But I mean, so we don't have too much with Red Wing, but I did feel sad.
Yeah, it's funny. I said this on Zacks of Life, actually. I think that moment could have been more impactful had they given Red Wing more time and done this like maybe a couple episodes later and like built more of a relationship, that funny relationship between Red Wing and Bucky. But I mean, it still kind of hit here. Red Wing is a piece of tech. We'll probably see Red Wing back in some capacity in the future. So I wouldn't be, too upset about losing Red Wing here. Let's see what else about this fight here. We quickly see that again, Enfys Nest, the Flag Smashers are getting the better of Bucky and Sam, and that doesn't happen if these are just normal thugs.
Right.
So clearly, we know they are all enhanced. We learned last week that they had at least one enhanced individual in this group, but now we know they are all enhanced, and things are not going so well for Sam and Bucky until Captain America himself shows up.
This was, I think it's brilliant that they played Cap's theme at this moment because it was so jarring, and I was so like angry to hear it, and I'm like, no, you can't play this great music with this guy. It doesn't work. And so I love that it's able to draw that like emotion out of me and that frustration out of me as a viewer. But I don't know. I thought that was a cruel but smart way to use Captain America's theme.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was weird. Like you hear that music and you're just like, oh, Captain America's here. And then you're like, oh yeah, it's John Walker.
Yeah.
Like, it's not quite the same. Another piece of casting trivia here from Kyle. We learned today Kumail Nanjiani joined the cast of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and he'll be coming right from Marvel's Eternals, so that's pretty cool. Some more cast sharing there. It was cool though. This scene I thought was interesting to see John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, who we now know as Battlestar, to see them in action for the first time, and they surprisingly, handled themselves very well. They really did save Sam and Bucky, whether we want to admit it or not. They saved them at least momentarily, and they did get the upper hand a little bit. At least John did. I know Lamar Battlestar got into some trouble, but John was able to save him. It's so weird talking about this superhero fight and being like, oh yeah, John and Lamar, like these two normal people. But on that note, I don't think they are normal people based on how they handled themselves in this fight. I don't know if you got that feeling too.
I was gonna say when it's a few scenes from here, but when they're in the truck and then they're talking about the super soldiers, and or Battlestar says, "Oh, are those things real?" And John's just kind of like he doesn't comment really one way or another. And I wondered if maybe is he somewhat enhanced or using some type of gear or something that gives him an advantage, and he's just hasn't. We don't know. We just don't know that yet.
Yeah, they're definitely being like very secretive about things, not really giving up too much information. There was a cool moment in this fight too, I thought, where John throws the shield and Bucky catches it, and within like a second of hesitation, he then just quickly hands it back to John, as if like, there was a moment there where Bucky could have had it. He even talks later on in this episode, like, we should just take the shield. You had the opportunity there, but he handed it right off back to John Walker. And I think that goes to a line that we'll talk about, later in this episode too, where he's kind of doubting himself, and maybe he doesn't really think that he deserves the shield. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. So the fight ends with all of the heroes pretty much getting knocked. They're not knocked out, but they're knocked out of the fight as the Flag Smashers escape. And John Walker wants to work with Flag. I'm just mixing up everything now. Everybody's just in Enfys Nest and the Flag Smashers.
Right.
They want to work with Bucky and Sam, and they are not having it, especially Bucky. Bucky was very aggressive, like, I'm not working with you. But I really liked this scene. Like, we kind of alluded to it already. This is where we find out he's Battlestar, and they're not really giving up too much information. I like the line from John Walker where, he's talking about how they tracked them, and, we tracked Red Wing, and Sam says, oh, you hacked my tech. He says, it's not really hacking, it's government property, and we're kind of the government. So I like that. I think that gives you an idea of where his head is at, and how he's going to operate going forward. But any thoughts on this whole conversation, this whole dynamic between this whole group here?
I liked that they did that, and you get that they don't, all four of them kind of don't want to be together, but also circumstances right now, they're on this, road 20 miles from wherever, you kind of, you're trying to, and you're also trying to find out a little bit of information from the other guys, what everybody's working towards, and, figure out if you have the same goal. No, I thought it was interesting. And we had talked many times that Bucky's not happy. His reaction to Battlestar, I wondered if that actually meant anything, or was it just like, oh no, that's just such a stupid name?
That was my thought. I think Bucky is here's Battlestar, and he thinks that's such a dumb name. We're not working with these guys. I mean, I guess it's possible that he has heard of Battlestar in the past, but my first thought is just, it's a stupid name. But as you said that too, I was thinking, there is this kind of buddy cop dynamic of this whole show, and I think we kind of have established now that Sam is sort of the good cop and Bucky's the bad cop. And even here, like, Sam is much more, willing to talk and get information however he can, whereas Bucky is just like, no, I'm done, and he's just out. Doesn't want to deal with them at all. So an interesting dynamic there too. So we then catch back up with the Flag Smashers, and we meet their leader a little bit more. We find out that her name is Carly Morgenthau, which is a cool spin on the comic book version of more or less this character. There's actually one character named Flag Smasher. He's just a classic yet sort of cheesy villain. And his name is actually Carl Morgenthau, spelled the same way, just take an I off of the first name. So nice spin on that character there. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah, I had heard that podcast that I listened to. It's Vanity Fair, if anybody. So they kind of know what they're talking about. They had mentioned that as well. She, the host, she's read the comics, and so I was like, okay, so I actually did have that little bit of knowledge, but I've not read the comic.
Oh, I mean, there's just a few 100,000 for you to catch up on. So
right.
We do see also that the Flag Smashers are gaining support. There are more and more people willing to, sort of put them up and keep them safe and keep them hidden as long as they possibly can. Although one of the Flag Smashers, quickly goes to the computer. He's clearly the tech guy of the group, and realizes, oh, they're already after us. We can't stay here. So we know they're on the run. We also learn more about what they're really all about, and it goes from the first episode telling us, this is like a terrorist organization. They're not good. We can't trust them at all. And now in this episode, it's more like they're more or less like Robin Hood. Like they're kind of just not, fighting against the people in power who have just, taken back the power after the blip, and much less of a villainy type of feel to this group.
Right. No, I definitely gathered that as well. In the back to the podcast, she interviewed, I want to say it's Malcolm Spellman, who's the one of the writers on the series, and he was just talking about how the antagonists of sorts in this series are like they all have legitimate reasons. Kind of like with they even talked about Black Panther, like even Killmonger, like he had legitimate reasons for what he was doing. Whether so none of it's like what's the word I'm looking for? They're not doing this like maliciously.
Right.
There's
It's not so black and white. It's more,
right.
shades of gray.
So I thought that was interesting too. And yeah, I think this will be it'll be interesting to see where more or to learn more about the Flag Smashers and understand where they're coming from. Whether or not we agree with them remains to be seen. But
right. Yeah, we'll see what their real goals are and everything, but they also are clearly sort of being hunted here, and there's somebody above them that is pressuring them. Real quick before I get to that, though, I do want to thank you. Yes, I'm not alone. But yeah, we see Carly receive this text message, or text messages, plural, from an unknown number. It says, "You took what was mine. I'm going to find you and kill you." So clearly there's a threat out there. Aside from just the authorities, there's somebody, much more dangerous, I guess we can say. Did you have any thoughts when you saw this? Like, who is this coming from? Anything stand out to you?
I don't know. No, yeah, I noticed it, but I didn't think I have no connection to who that might be messaging her and what it possibly could be that she took. I'm clueless. How about you?
I was right there with you in terms of when I saw this. I was just like, this is interesting. There's another layer to this. We knew Zemo was going to be a part of this, but we know it's not him. He's still, imprisoned in some way. So this in the moment was really interesting because adds another villain to what is already a fairly crowded series. There's a lot going on here. Yes. And we do, I think, find out more about where this is coming from later on, but we will get there as well. After we see this, we get back to Bucky and Sam, and they are kind of debating what to do. Bucky says he wants to just take the shield. Sam says, talks him out of it, actually. He says the last time they did that, him and Steve had to go on the run for however many years, 3 years, 2 years. And Sharon, the first mention of Sharon Carter, became an enemy of the state. So you remember she was working with the CIA and
yes,
stole Captain America's shield from the government, more or less. So they're probably not going to be happy about that. But Sam tells Bucky they have nothing to go off of, and Bucky says that's not exactly true. So that's when he takes him to Baltimore and introduces him to a new character by the name of Isaiah. And Bucky talks about some of their history and says, they met up. I forget which war he said it was, but they met up at some point and they fought. And Isaiah actually explains he got the better of Bucky, which is surprising. Hearing the stories from Black Widow back in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, it seemed like the Winter Soldier was unbeatable. There was nobody ever got the better of him. You never heard any stories or anything like that. So it was interesting to hear that and the dynamic between these two characters, for sure.
Well, and didn't Isaiah also mention that people would go out searching for somebody and then they'd never come back? And I assume he was talking about Bucky, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like you're saying, that is indeed, amazing that he was able to get the better of him.
Right, and then it doesn't take long for us to learn afterwards that Isaiah was, or still is, an enhanced. He is a super soldier himself. So I don't think we mentioned, actually, going back a little bit, that the heroes determined that the Flag Smashers are super soldiers. They're not just enhanced. They're, they know, and more or less, that they receive some sort of the super soldier serum, and that's why they are so invested in this now, because that's sort of where these characters came from. So
Do you think, and maybe I'm missing something. Do you think they are the super soldiers as it, like, on the same caliber that Bucky and I'm assuming Isaiah are? I feel like Bucky's just a little rusty and hasn't, I don't know, maybe, or maybe since he's not completely mind controlled, he doesn't have, like, he's not tapping into all of his potential power. I like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely think Bucky is holding back. I mean, super soldiers, it's a mixed bag. We know that the super soldier experiment doesn't, there's no consistency to it. You always get all sorts of different results. And Steve Rogers was the only one that was truly like perfected. That was the only like real super soldier. And everybody else has kind of just gotten, you know, remnants of what Steve could potentially be. I do think, I think Bucky is not reaching his full potential right now because, you know, he's operating under these rules. He's trying not to hurt anybody. He's not, you know, like he is doing things that are illegal, but trying to hold back. And he doesn't want to become that killer again. He doesn't, you know, he wants to operate within the rules a little bit more. So I think he is holding back. As far as what the Flag Smashers are, I think they are, you know, enhanced with the super soldier serum, but not again to that full capacity. And I think that actually goes back, which I believe it was our previous picture, right? Yeah, going back to the text message here, as far as what they took, that's what I'm guessing it is. They stole the super soldier serum from whoever it is that is sending this text message, or maybe not the serum, but whatever variant of these, you know, the materials for these experiments are at this point. That's what I'm thinking was stolen.
Another question with that, do you think they're taking it to benefit themselves or to prevent somebody from utilizing it further on other people? If, I mean, let's just pretend that theory is exactly what's happening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think probably both. I think they are using it because they have these goals of basically being these sort of like freedom fighters and you know, trying to spread the wealth out and, you know, promoting equality and stuff. And they using this to enhance themselves so that they can achieve those goals while at the same time taking the serum out of the hands of people who would use it for other purposes.
Okay, cool. I like that. I like that theory.
I mean, yeah, again, it is just a theory. Well, we'll see where we go from here. But a character that is mentioned later on, I think, furthers that theory a little bit more. But we'll get there. Getting back to Isaiah, he proves that he is still at least somewhat enhanced when he throws some little metal container into a wall, which really shocks Sam. You know, proving that he was and still is a super soldier. When there shouldn't be any more super soldiers, really. Now, Isaiah is actually a character from the comics in which he was actually, I mean, in title, the Black Captain America. So it was cool that they included this character. Obviously didn't give him the title of Captain America, but, you know, very cool that they brought him into the MCU and added to that lore a little bit. Now, the most interesting part of meeting Isaiah was actually one more thing I want to mention that he said to Bucky. He talks about how after the war and everything, he was put in jail for 30 years and people came in and did experiments on him. They took blood, and he tells Bucky, even your people weren't done with me, which based on what he knew about Bucky at the time, he's talking about Hydra. Mm-hmm. So now we know that Hydra was still experimenting with super soldiers and you know, well after Captain America was already on ice. And there could be more super soldiers out there that are flying the Hydra banner. So that's never a good thing.
Right.
But again, the more interesting thing about meeting Isaiah is actually the young man who opened the door for Sam and Bucky. That would be his grandson, which in the moment we just assume, but it actually is confirmed in the credits. He does go by the name of Eli Bradley, who is none other than the Young Avenger known as Patriot. One of the leaders of the Young Avengers. It kind of goes back and forth between him and Kate Bishop and bounces around a little bit. But another Young Avenger added to the MCU, and we have been stockpiling them now for a while. We know Kate Bishop is coming. We've already had Cassie Lang. We had Billy and Tommy. Now we don't. I'm sure we'll get Billy and Tommy again in the future. We know America
Miss Marvel.
Chavez is
Yes.
coming. Yeah, Miss Marvel actually is not a Young Avenger in the original team. She could
Okay.
be in the MCU version. We'll have to see. But these characters are out there just waiting to be assembled now. So, or at least they will be within the next couple of years. So, I'm expecting a Young Avengers group sometime in the next few years in the MCU.
I would think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I really this was a lot happened in this episode as far as throwing new characters in, and this was one that I thought might have been done in a bigger way because it felt like the last piece. Like there are a couple of other Young Avengers out there still, but Patriot felt like the last, the one, like the glue that would bring them together. But I like the way that they so subtly threw him in there and can potentially, just bring him back in the future. So again, just a really, really cool nod to the comics and hopefully something much bigger in the future. So as that whole scene wraps up and Sam and Bucky are leaving, and Sam is obviously very upset that he didn't know there was another super soldier out there and who knows how many more. They, start to argue a little bit. The police show up. They start hassling Sam and then find out that he is Falcon, which I thought was a really funny scene too. The officer is, like freaks out for a second until they realize that there's a warrant out for Bucky because he skipped his therapy session. And so they arrest Bucky, which you had a funny observation about that scene as well.
Oh, is there any point in putting handcuffs on him? I mean, like, yeah, okay, it would stick onto one arm, but couldn't he just like rip it off with his his metal arm? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that I totally agree. I mean, there's so many things where like, you have the police or just humans in general trying to deal with these superheroes, and it's like, what can you even really do?
Right.
I have not seen this video with the actors who played Billy and Tommy. I will have to check that out afterwards because I'm definitely interested. Unless I did when WandaVision finished up and I just forgot about it, but I will go back and revisit that for sure. So thank you for pointing that out. Sam also, before we move on to the next scene, Sam takes one last look at the house where Isaiah lives. And I think that was another like subtle thing where like, oh, we'll see this house again in the future. Just remember what this looks like. We'll be coming back here. We got to get Eli back into a future movie and somehow. So you'll see this house again. Sam then meets Dr. Rayner, the therapist that Bucky was dealing with in the first episode. I like that they brought her back for more. We knew it was coming because we saw,
of course,
trailers and stuff. But I like that they brought her back because the dynamic between her and Bucky was so funny. Now you throw Sam into that as well, and we get that couples therapy scene that we saw so much of, including the staring contest here, which was this whole scene was it was fantastic because not only was it hilarious, but there was also a lot of heart to it, and you actually get a really big reveal about Bucky here too.
Yeah, isn't he asks Sam when they finally kind of commit to what they're actually doing. He's why'd you give up the shield? And then he's like, if Steve was wrong about you, then maybe he was wrong about me. And it's like, oh wow, that's a huge thing to be carrying around with you, and definitely not something that you're just going to tell anybody. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting reveal.
Yeah, and that was what I was alluding to earlier when talking about that moment where Bucky caught the shield and just handed it off. He's doubting himself. He doesn't believe that he, belongs even in the presence of Captain America or Steve Rogers. So how is he possibly going to carry the shield himself? I think when he was telling Sam we should just do it, we should take the shield, he meant Sam should take the shield back. He never wanted the shield himself. So I mean, there's a lot of like the psychology with this character in this series. And I mean, again, this scene was so funny and yet still had that whole big revelation in there. It's amazing the way that they can balance the two in something like that.
I know. And right. Like, and switch it on and off so fast too. Like you're laughing 1 second and then the next you're like, okay, this is something serious. And then you're back to laughing again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they balance it so well. They do such a good job of that. I should have mentioned also, Sam thanks Raynor for getting Bucky out of jail, and she tells him it wasn't her. And that's when, of course, John Walker shows up again and says, I need Bucky. I can't have him tied up in his, such a strict schedule. He's done with his therapy, but more or less, I'm taking him out of it. And you see the attitude start to change in John Walker. Like, he's starting to just take control. He's no longer, so hesitant and worried about, like, am I going to be a good Captain America? Now he's like, I am Captain America. I'm doing things this way.
I'm curious if that's type of authority is what, like, would Steve have had that same authority? Would he have been able to, I mean, yes, besides the fact that Bucky's his friend, would he have been able to just be like, no, I'm going to release him from, I don't know. It's so interesting to me because while we've had superheroes doing their thing this whole entire time, you've not really seen anybody, or maybe I'm wrong, but you've not really seen anybody making decisions from like a government aspect, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. I mean, I think Steve was more like, he didn't want that authority. He didn't want to have that power over people. He's a leader, but he doesn't want to be making, even like political decisions like that. Though in this specific situation, I think Steve would have bailed Bucky out, and then he probably would have had that, like, father picking his son up from detention sort of talk on the ride home.
Don't do this to me again.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. You can clearly see the differences between John Walker and Steve Rogers as this episode goes on. So John, still trying to recruit Bucky and Sam to work with him, tells them he'll be waiting for him outside, and he meets them out there when they are done with their couples therapy. And they, again, try to let them know, like, this is what the Flag Smashers are up to. We're tracking them. As soon as we have a location, we'll find them. And, again, Bucky is very aggressive about not wanting to work with them. And John kind of fires back. He kind of snaps at Bucky a little bit. And, he's like, as soon as we have a location, we'll have them. And Bucky says, things are really intense for you, aren't they? And Walker kind of, gives him a look of, like, to me, and I didn't catch this until after watching the whole episode and going back the third, fourth time, whatever. Yeah, I probably watched each episode too many times, but regardless, to me, this look that he has is almost like, what do you know? Like, it seems like something that you shouldn't. And I'm curious to know if you go back and check that out in that moment, it feels like there's something there. I don't know if you caught anything like that.
I didn't, but I will definitely take another look.
I mean, and it goes, like I said, it's only because of what I know happens afterwards, which, again, we're almost there. We're almost at the end of this episode, so we'll talk about some more theories and everything. But they turn them down. They turn John and Lamar down again, and Sam explains that they have, all sorts of red tape. They have authorizations they need to get. They need to go through the right channels because they are the government. They are, working with the U.S. government. And Sam and Bucky are free agents, which Sam was working for the Air Force. I guess he's not. He's doing this on his own. Whatever. They're going to follow their own rules. And that brought up the Sokovia Accords to me. I think, it's very similar to the whole dynamic of Civil War, and how Steve was saying, the safest hands are still our own. And what if we want to go somewhere and they won't let us, and that whole dynamic. And so Sam, follows that whole thought process, and, decides we can't work together. Mm-hmm. And that's when you see the final snap there for John, as he tells them, if you're not going to work with us, then stay out of my way. I think he uses some other language that I won't repeat here, but yeah, he tells him to stay out of his way, because, if you're not with me, you're against me, sort of thing. So yeah, that was sort of the final straw for John Walker in this episode, which, again, in a matter of 45 minutes, you go from oh, maybe, you know, I relate to this guy. I totally get it. I see where he's coming from, to now like, oh, I don't like him again. Like, and I think there's still a lot more to come on that front. And that brings us to, did you have any other thoughts on this before I move on to our?
I think you're good. I think you're good.
Okay. We get back to the Flag Smashers here as they are loading up a plane, trying to, you know, get these supplies that they stole recently, you know, to wherever they need to bring them. And one of the other Flag Smashers lets Carly know they're out of time. Somebody's coming, and he explains it's the power brokers men. It's such a quick throwaway line that I've talked about this with a bunch of friends and family and stuff, and I keep bringing up, you know, oh, the power broker, that means this, and everybody's saying, wait, who's the power broker? Like, it's said so quickly that you have to go back and watch it, or be watching with you know, closed captioning on or something, because it's such a quick line.
Yeah, I have no idea who this character is. You had mentioned in one of our group channels, we were talking, and you were like, "Oh, we got Isaiah, we got Patriot, power broker," and I'm like, then I'm thinking, okay, who's her power broker's men? And I'm like, did somebody send somebody after? And I'm like trying to think back through the episode, like what did I miss? Who sent who? But yeah, like you said, it's just a throwaway line, so we don't actually meet this character, or at least if we have no idea that that's the alias they're using.
And that is sort of a secondary thought that I want to come back to. But the power broker, yeah, not a character, at least that we know of, that we've met in the MCU to this point. He, in the comics, is a career criminal who has amassed this fortune and uses it to enhance individuals, whether the superhero or super soldier serum, or just through technology, however he goes about doing it. And then basically more or less uses that, like blackmails them for them to do his bidding. So he creates villains, more or less.
Okay.
Among his clients in the comics are none other than John Walker and Lamar Hoskins. So that tells me he is dealing in the super soldier serum, and John and Lamar have seemed enhanced because they've already received the serum, and are now working with the power broker in some way. That would explain why they are so eager to get the Flag Smashers. Now, going back to that text message that Carly received, seems like that came from the power broker, right? They stole something from him, meaning the super soldier serum, and now he wants to, he wants to eliminate them. He wants to get the serum back, all of his supplies back, and he's going to do that with his biggest guns. He's going to use John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, and so while they are, officially Captain America and Battlestar and working with the government, also secretly doing this. And my guess is the government doesn't know that they are enhanced. They talked about, running those tests and on his intelligence, his endurance and everything. And that's, again, in Good Morning America, John cuts her off. And, I don't want to, almost like I don't want to talk about this. Let's move on to a different subject, kind of hiding something there. And when Bucky says things are really intense for you, he gives him that look of like, do you know something? Like, yeah, it's intense for me because I am working for the power broker. I need to stop them. So yeah, that's my thought. I think there's this other villain out there pulling the strings of John Walker and Lamar Hoskins and trying to take down Enfys Nest, who are more or less going to end up not really being villains by the end of this, is my thought. So curious your thoughts on that.
I think everything you just said there sounds amazing. So I hadn't even really thought too deep into it, but I think that makes a lot of sense. And if it plays out that way, then I think that'll be fun. Yeah,
and that's, again, like I was saying, gonna change your thoughts on John Walker even more. I think if he's doing these nefarious things, then how can you like this guy? But at the same time, it still leaves the door open for, he is this soldier, and if he just gets this little edge, he can become such a bigger thing, and he has this opportunity, and he's just trying to do the right thing and help his country. So he takes that opportunity, even if it wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. So I think they're still going to have this angle where you can relate to this guy and, see him as the hero that he does become in the comics, we can see him that way in the future of the MCU as well. Or my other wrinkle to this here, and this was actually brought up to me. I was talking to my cousin about this, and he brought up this idea. Well, kind of, we pieced it together. But what if those text messages are coming from John Walker? What if we get an Iron Man 3, the Mandarin sort of, John Walker is the power broker. Maybe he is enhancing himself, and they stole the super soldier serum from him, and he's really, keeping this huge secret. So, I mean, it could end up being this relatable hero in the future, or just another huge villain. Lots of interesting things going on here with this. I can't wait. I can't wait to find out, more about what direction they're gonna go.
Yeah, me too. Any possibility it could be Nightmare or Grim Reaper?
Mephisto, maybe?
Agatha all along? No. I do actually like that idea too, where you have somebody who's, being presented, or who's taken on this persona of the hero, who's actually, not only is he not up to some good things in his personal life, but then even worse than that, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait. Like I said, I can't wait to see what angle they actually go with it. Although I would love to see a big musical number revealing who the villain actually is. I don't think we're going to get that like we did last time. Jeffrey again here, not as big a letdown as the Mandarin. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think we'll ever be let down as that big in the MCU again. At least, knock on wood.
Is the actual Mandarin, isn't that storyline going to kind of tie into Shang-Chi?
Well, we know the Mandarin, like the real Mandarin, is going to be in Shang-Chi. We don't know how much that's going to tie into Iron Man 3, I guess. Hopefully.
That's true.
Yeah. There is one more scene. We got one more reveal in this episode, quote unquote reveal. There were a few things that we talked about not seeing in the first episode that we wanted. One was Bucky and Sam on screen together. The second was Sharon Carter, who we at least got a mention of her this week. We'll see her hopefully fairly soon. And the third was one of the villains that we knew were going to be in the series. And first off, we had
yes,
Flag Smashers did escape, sacrificing one of their own who volunteered to stay behind and slow down the Power Broker's men. But this final scene, we did get the reveal of Zemo's involvement in this series. And that is because Bucky tells Sam, when Isaiah said, even your people weren't done with me, he's talking about Hydra. And Sam disagrees for a second, but then realizes what Bucky is talking about, because they need to get Hydra information, and who knows everything there is to know about Hydra, but the villain from Captain America Civil War, Zemo. So we get the look at Zemo. They don't actually meet up with him in this episode. We know they're going to. It was interesting. I think Sam mentioned, so you're just going to sit in a room with this guy. I mean, last time they met, Zemo completely manipulated Bucky just by saying a few words from a book. So not a good idea for these two to get together again.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. I was so focused on the fact that the overhead shot for taking us to Berlin was not exactly, but it was very, very similar to what they did, that roundabout that they did in Civil War. So yeah, we know he's still being held as a prisoner. Is he still under Shield's observation, or
no? I'm curious about what the status is of Shield, to be honest, because Shield went down in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. They've kind of operated, but we haven't really seen the name Shield used,
right.
as much as I can remember, at least, except for the series Agents of Shield, which may or may not be canon at this point, may or may not have been erased by different timelines and whatnot. So I'm not sure. Yes, I would assume he's being held by some sort of bigger world government agency of some sort, but I'm not sure exactly whether or not it's Shield or something. Maybe it's Sword. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I assume we're going to find out some more information about that as this series goes on.
And do you think that Zemo is going to be a potential, or do you think he's a villain, or do you think this is one of these, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing? Like, will he be working with Sam and Bucky and possibly the Flag Smashers too? Or, I don't know. Like, I could almost see them kind of coming to a truce to take on whatever lurking threat they're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, that's, I think, where this series gets so interesting. And like we talked about before a little bit, it's not so black and white. There's different shades of gray here. And we hear Zemo in the trailer say something along the lines of superheroes cannot be allowed to exist. So he's going to have a problem with all super soldiers, right? He's not going to like the Flag Smashers. He's not going to like the Power Broker. So, I mean, he's going to have sort of his own allegiance here. And I mean, we know Zemo's not a great guy, at least based on the comics. He's not a great guy in Civil War either, but he also, he has those motivations. He's still not like that straight up villain like we're talking about. But yeah, that's what I like about this. We're getting so many different angles to this now. So you're going to have Sam and Bucky. You're going to have John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, the Power Broker, who may or may not be on that same side. You have the Flag Smashers, and now you're going to have Zemo. And Sharon Carter is going to get thrown into the mix. So there's so many different angles to this that I can't wait to see how this all plays out. I want to point out a couple of comments real quick. Thank you. Hopefully this theory pans out. Kidder gives me some helpful information here. Jeffrey's nickname is based on Disney Trivia Live is actually Geo. I thought that. I wasn't sure that you were the Geo, so thank you for watching, Geo. But yeah, so one more thing I wanted to mention about this scene, there's actually a pretty cool Star Wars Easter egg in this this reveal of Zemo here. Based on the security footage we see, he is in cell 2187, which is the same number of the cell that Princess Leia is held in Star Wars A New Hope. So a pretty cool little nod there. And then that goes back to, thanks to our Star Wars expert, Mike Celestino, pointed this out to me. That's actually a film called 2187 that inspired George Lucas, and he referenced in several of his films later on. So pretty cool little nod there. Be funny if it's just a coincidence, but I would assume that was on purpose.
Well, come on. We had a GMA exclusive in the beginning of this episode. I'm pretty sure they're like, hey, any Star Wars stuff you could sneak in there?
Very, very true. Good point. Yeah, all the synergy we can get in one episode here.
Although I will say I appreciate these Easter eggs much more than the blatant, like, hey.
Yes, agreed. That was a lot. There was a lot to break down in that episode. A lot of new characters introduced or mentioned. Any other closing thoughts on this before we wrap up for today?
No, I think I covered. I think my closing thought was the whole, where's Zemo's allegiance going to fall, or how are they going to, will they work together? So that was pretty much the rest of it for me.
I'm also interested to know, how does Zemo get out? Are Sam and Bucky going to get him out of his imprisonment, or is he going to break out in some way? Is he working with somebody already? There's a lot. I can't wait.
Maybe it'll be John Walker.
Yeah.
I need him. I need to release him.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Zemo's a valuable asset. I can't have him all tied up. Wouldn't be shocked. It feels like, we just got started. We're only 2 episodes in, but there's only 4 episodes left. I need answers. We need to, and that is something too I want to point out, because my one minor complaint about the first episode was that, they left a lot to happen in the next 5 episodes. But now I'm on board. I think they are moving. They moved at a very good pace. It never felt rushed, this episode.
Right.
And yet, look at everything we just talked about. They just got so much into this episode. So I think they've got this worked out. I was going to trust Marvel to handle this well anyway, but now, they've proved here again that they have it all figured out, and we're going to get just another great Marvel series.
I think so.
All right. So that is going to do it for another Marvel Monday. We, of course, will have Parks Talk Live coming up at 4 p.m. Pacific today. And then Laughing Place Movie Club tonight at 7:30 p.m. If you want some more Marvel Comics news, you can join me and Benji as we talk about the latest in Marvel Comics on Marvel Time live on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Bekah has Barely Necessities, which I'm sure there'll be some Marvel merchandise featured in there.
Oh, I think we can count on that.
New Zacks of Life podcast is out as well, so you can check that out. We draft the funniest scenes in the MCU. Bekah, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your first pick? Funniest MCU scene? See,
I don't know. I mean, I kind of like that whole when they're on. Is it Titan? The whole. And I'm forgetting everybody's name.
With Star-Lord
with Star-Lord, with Iron Man, with who's Gamora? What master do you serve? That whole
yes.
That's the first one that comes to mind.
That's good because that's one of my picks. So
okay.
Good answer. So yeah, check that episode out and then keep an eye out for the poll so you can vote for me to win this one.
There you go.
But aside from that, we will see you next week to talk about some more Marvel must-haves and another episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Bye, everyone.
Bye.